She Can tells women's stories. We show women's journeys, how they got to where they are today. And I'm very excited to welcome Tatiana Kotlyarenko today. Tatiana, welcome to She Can. You're an international expert on human trafficking and gender-based violence, and you've been doing a lot of work around that for a very long time. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I've been working in this sphere all across the globe for about 2 decades now. Everything from issues related to human trafficking, from direct assistance to victims, then to policy writing at the international level, working on legislation and training of different stakeholders from civil society on to government stakeholders, advising governments on how to strengthen their systems, but also with a strong focus on gender piece because the majority of detected victims are still women and girls. And that's also directly related to the very different issues that happen all across the world, whether it's economic disempowerment of women or conflict.
Tatiana, I know that you've been speaking about the trend and the upwards challenges in human trafficking as a consequence of COVID and the wars going on right now. Tell us a little bit more about that.
There have been a number of studies done on conflict related or the intersection between conflict and trafficking of women and girls or women and children in general. And when women are displaced or made vulnerable, they very much become susceptible to various offers of work, of care, etc., and then fall into situations of trafficking. When it comes to COVID-19 pandemic, whilst I was working for the OSCE Office of Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, we teamed up with UN Women to conduct a study on how COVID-19 pandemic was impacting trafficking and vulnerability to trafficking, specifically looking at women and children. And what we have found is that a lot of it has moved online. And the trend has continued post the COVID-19 pandemic days where everything was on lockdown. So what we have seen is the transition of a lot of trafficking online all across the globe, directed very much towards sexual exploitation of both women and children.
Tatiana, so tell us a bit more about your journey. How did you get to do this particular work and show and give us some challenges that you had to overcome?
So I'll start this journey as a refugee girl in New York City, where I was told no to pretty much everything, where it was difficult to really envision anything beyond the ordinary, and the ordinary was exceptional. I always wanted to have some sort of impact. I felt lucky that I got to grow up in New York City, and I wanted to use that to create my own journey. And everybody thought that my vision was out of scope, frankly speaking, where I wanted to do international human rights work even when I was little, as I said, because I saw what was happening to women and girls, for example, in terms of trafficking in the former Soviet Union countries or the Soviet bloc, Eastern Europe, etc., but also outside of that. So I just created my own journey, which for most has been, would have been unimaginable, but I understood the steps that I needed to take. And I fought for every single one of those steps. A lot of people end up in my or working for an international organization, for example, because they come from a more privileged position. I did not. I had to create every step of the way, fight for every step of the way until I got there. But what I could tell to the many girls and women out there, if you can dream it and you're willing to work for it, it can be possible.
Tatiana, I love that. It's very powerful, and it's a powerful story that you really turned into your superpower in doing this important work. What would you say is your main motivator? I mean, it's obviously a thing from your childhood growing up, overcoming challenges, dreaming big. What is your main motivator now that you've been doing this work for 2 decades?
I believe my main motivator is hope, actually. Because I work with topics that are pretty horrific when we're talking about human trafficking, gender-based violence, victims of those crimes. And for me, a lot of people will ask me what keeps me going. And it's that hope, the hope I see in their eyes when they're removed from those situations and are given proper support and assistance, where they could create different lives and move away from what has happened to them into what they want to become.
Tatiana, and give us an example of a project you're working on right now.
Well, a lot of my focus on right now is on specifically addressing sexual violence and conflict. We have seen, or now there are 110 conflicts all across the globe.
Mm,
We see the incredible impact specifically on women and girls.
mm.
And one of the things that I am determined to do right now is to make sure that it is visible, it is not sidelined in peace negotiations, and the full impact of that violence is addressed long term as well. Because a lot of times the conflicts end, societies start healing, but the women's trauma and what has happened to them is not actually addressed and has long-term impacts, as we see in trafficking and other specific issues that last them a lifetime.
Tatiana, and what qualities do you think you have that serve you so well in doing this kind of work?
I would say tenacity. As I said, when I'm told that it is not possible or I can't do something, I insist and persist, and that has created my ability, I believe, not just to dream but to get it done.
Tatiana, and what are you most proud of to date?
The thing that I'm most proud of to date is the establishment of the International Survivors of Trafficking Advisory Council while I was working as the advisor in anti-trafficking issues at the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights. And what it is 21 survivor leaders of human trafficking who get the international highest level platform to provide guidance, advice, and consult governments, legislation, policy all across the globe. Where for me, the uplifting and empowering of those that actually have the real solutions, not the bureaucrats or the academics, I believe is the change maker. And seeing those that have experienced some of the worst human rights violations in the world um, sitting at the same tables as the policymakers, as the politicians, and actually providing the route to real solutions, not to addressing trafficking or helping victims, but eradication of trafficking is, I think, to date, my biggest achievement.
Yeah, it's incredible. What top tips, Tatiana, would you give to a woman or a girl who realize they're finding themselves in a situation where they're either being trafficked or feel violence against them in any shape or form?
To seek for help. And sometimes that help is hard to get, but not to give up on themselves, to see their own self-value and to really seek for help because that help is available out there. And it's not an easy journey, but the journey is possible and healing is possible and getting back to who you are is possible as well.
Yeah, thank you, Tatiana. Tatiana, so what plans and goals do you have for your future? What are the next years looking like?
That's a difficult question because I think it always changes to some degree, but what I want to do is do work that has direct impact on the people that we're trying to help
Mm,
because a lot of it is theory or general ideas, and we continue going year after year with some, positives and some positive changes, but not a significant change. So what I want to do is work on at the highest level to create significant changes, so that we're not talking about a small solutions or how to make things better, but how to change things. And change, I believe, in this sphere is really possible with the right commitment from governments and all of the other stakeholders.
Yeah, and you bring them all to the table.
Exactly. And it is bringing all of them to the table, those that actually experience the violence that we're trying to address and eradicate.
Yeah. Tatiana, so have you had any role models? Who were your role models that inspired and motivated you to persevere, to keep going, and to keep dreaming that dream and making it a reality?
I would say many of the feminist leaders from US. So I've had the benefit of interacting with people like Catherine McKinnon. I've met Gloria Steinem, and it was my fangirl moment. I usually don't have those, but it was definitely that. The incredible women that have changed our society, that have stayed committed and made it their life's goal to see a different world for women and girls. So I would say some of those women.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tatiana, for talking to me today, for telling your story, which will serve many others.
Thank you so much.